I'm L'Oreal Faulkner, and these are the 15 most beneficial things that I learned from multicultural policing this semester. The language barriers. Knowing that you can have a translator is really helpful, and knowing that they will come as soon as they possibly can, as long as they're available, is really nice to know. I didn't know that. If you have to ask a family member or a child, it would be the last resort because you don't want them getting mixed in with whatever is going on in the situation. Nonverbal communication. Gestures can mean different things in all different cultures. I knew a little bit about that, but I learned a lot more in this class. And that different facial expressions, eye contact or no eye contact, being too close to somebody, or just the way your feet are can be offensive in different cultures. So you need to be more aware of who you're talking to, whether it's a victim or a suspect, just so you don't offend them. So they'll cooperate hopefully a little bit more than they would if you offended them. Stereotyping. Stereotyping, we all do it. We don't necessarily mean to, but we all do it, whether it's just that little thought about, a Hispanic person picking beans or whatever. Judging people by how they look is not okay, and trying to get better at it is what will make you a better police officer in the long run. Racial profiling. I see people do it all the time, and I didn't realize it was illegal. People still do it, and it needs to stop. Profiling someone just based on their race alone is not fair, and it's not right. You need to base your opinion on somebody based on how they act and their background and what they've done and haven't done in the past, not just because they're black doesn't mean that they're a criminal. Just because they're from the Middle East doesn't mean they're a terrorist. And just because they're white doesn't mean they think they're better than anybody else. Gender roles and cultures. I didn't realize how different cultures were with their gender roles. In the US, a lot of times women are the provider and who brings in the money and who is the head of the household at times, not all the time. But in different cultures, women are with children and they cook and they clean and they do things that was in the past for us. And we need to respect that and just to respect the roles in that household. A lot of people, they live with many generations. So the grandparents might be the ones you need to talk to and not the father of the house. It just depends on the roles and what the culture is, and you need to be more aware of that. Gangs. I did not realize there were so many types of gangs. I knew about like street gangs and prison gangs, but I didn't realize there was gangs in like government and even like police gangs. I didn't know that. Gang involvement in sex trafficking is a whole lot bigger than I would anticipate. Also, you hear about it, but you don't hear about it as much that you would think that it was that much of the gangs that had a lot to do with it. Homelessness. I work in a homeless shelter, so I see homeless people in and out all the time, whether it's kids who are barely 18 that got kicked out of their house or left or for whatever reason, whether it's a family that just had some bad luck, whether it's an older person that got kicked out of their house that they've had for 30 years and they'd have nowhere to go and no family will take them in. It's really hard to see, Sometimes it's because of drugs, sometimes because they just got out of prison or jail and they don't have anywhere to go. And learning more about how many people are actually homeless just kind of touched me, and it's really sad, and I hope that it can get better over time. Bias, everyone has their own biases, whether we want to admit it or not. Some can be small or some can be larger. And when it becomes a bias that leads to a crime or a hate crime because of that bias, is when it becomes a very, very big problem and a bad problem to have. Right now, there's a lot of biases against like blacks and the LGBTQ community and even police officers, and people are getting hurt that shouldn't be getting hurt, and it needs to stop and it needs to get better, and people need to understand a little more about what they're being biased about. Even profiling, the use of background, physical, behavioral, or motivational characteristics for a type of perpetrator, um, is to identify them if they're in the criminal activity or not. You shouldn't base it on their race. As I said earlier, you should base it on what you know about that person and go from there. Diverse station in communities. Having your police station look like your community is going to be a lot more helpful than if you're in a black community with all white police officers. You need to have the diversity of that police station to look more like your community itself, because the people in the community will feel a lot safer. They will feel more in tune with you and feel like you're actually helping and not against them all the time. Helping the community. As a police officer, you need to be involved in your community, and to involve yourself in any way. We have Shop with a Cop, and we also have different things that our police officers are involved in all the time. I'm in Logan, so we have Officer Smith. We had a lot of problems, not because of him, but because of something else that happened. Uh, but our whole community stood behind him because we know him and we know how he is with people and with kids, and he's one of the best police officers I've ever met. He's very nice and just very helpful with everybody in my community. Communication dynamics. Knowing what to say and what not to say to different people is a beneficial thing to know and very important to different races of people. Um, Knowing the best response to some accusations that people may make is good to know. And some people will use different aspects to try to make it sound like you're against them when you're actually just trying to help them. If somebody gets pulled over for speeding and it happens to be somebody of a different race and you're a white police officer, they may say that it's just because of their race. But for you, as a police officer, you pulled them over because they were speeding and you want them to be safe and everybody around them to be safe and for nobody to get hurt. Deflect and de-escalate. How to deflect somebody's anger is a big thing to know how to do. Also, how to de-escalate a situation. To deflect someone's anger and make it about actually what they're angry about and not then throwing it at somebody else's behavior or somebody else to pick up the slack or anything, can save someone's life. Also, de-escalating a situation, whether it's from an argument or from somebody looked at somebody wrong, de-escalating that situation can be the matter of life and death in some situations. Taboos in the mosque. I didn't know there was so many taboo things you can do in a mosque. Different things are never step on a prayer rug or a mat or a prayer mat with your shoes on. Avoid walking in front of someone that's in the middle of a prayer. Speak quietly when people are praying around you. Dress conservatively. no shorts, they're not allowed. If needed, if you need to talk to someone, invite them out of the prayer room so as not to disrupt anybody else in there. And do not put anything on the Quran. Don't touch it. Don't place it on the floor. Don't, just don't. Peyote in um, the Native Americans, it's used for so many different things in their culture that it's allowed for them. They use it for hunting, as a term for hunting. They use it for medicine, for predicting weather, as a term to help find lost things, and for a term of protection for them. If you need to confiscate the peyote from them, you need to ask and not forcibly take it away because that would be offensive to them. And that is what I learned in